Okay.
All right, this is an interview with Pincus Lieberman, the Castle Senior Living Center at Plainville, New York. It is the 20th of November, 2003, approximately 1:10 p.m. Interviewers are Michael Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
I take it you, Mr. Russert.
Yes, sir. Mike. Your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please.
My full name is Pincus Lieberman. I was born in Vienna, Austria, July 18, 1917.
What was your, when did you come to this country?
I came to this country in 1929. I came from Palestine. At that time it was still Palestine, which is known today as Israel.
All right. When did you immigrate to Palestine?
As a baby.
Baby,
Yeah.
okay.
I have no recollection of Vienna, Austria. My parents moved on to Israel at that time.
Okay, and then you moved on to the United States. Was it your whole family, or?
Well, no, it was not the whole family. My father, rest in peace, came to the United States a few years earlier. And because of immigration being restricted, the only way he was able to get us over is under the quota system. I didn't see my father. Actually, he left Palestine, which is now Israel, about 6 years before. I was about 6 years old. And then I didn't see him till I was about 11 years old. Just a short time before we came to the States, I lost a brother who was about 18 years old. So actually the trip to the United States was made by myself and my mother, rest in peace.
Okay. Where did you come to live in the United States?
For a short time, very short time, we lived in Williamsburg, and then we moved on to East New York. We lived in East New York for quite a few years until I went into service.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
I graduated high school, and it was a question of continuing by Hebrew education. So I enrolled to an institution known as the Herzliya Hebrew Academy, and I became a licensed teacher. Actually, I didn't utilize my teaching because it was during the Depression years, and it was very difficult. Most of the schools at that time did not introduce Hebrew as a language. It was just Thomas Jefferson High School in Brooklyn and Seward Park High School in the Lower East Side. And just to teach Hebrew in any other institution, the pay was very, very low, and because of that, I was forced to take up a trade, which I stayed on for some time until I went into service.
Okay. Do you remember hearing about Pearl Harbor? Where were you, and what was your reaction to this?
I certainly was, because I was inducted in 1941 when Pearl Harbor was attacked. So you
were in the service already?
I drew a lucky number. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, I was hesitating. Prior to Pearl Harbor, I was hesitating whether I should take a furlough or not, because I was there for the 1 year, supposedly. And I figured another 2 months and I'll be out. I came home on a Friday. I was there on Saturday, and Sunday, December 7th, was Pearl Harbor. Needless to say, there was no television in those days, and they were blasting all over the radio for servicemen to return to their unit. And I, like a good soldier, I packed up, and Monday morning, I was on my way back to Fort Benning, Georgia. When I walked into the orderly room, my first sergeant said, "What the hell are you doing here?" This is the way he spoke to me. "What the hell are you doing here?" I said, "There's a war on." He said, "You know, once you return those furlough papers, That's it. That's it. You want to go back to New York? I said, not me. I said, I don't want to go through. My parents were crying. My wife, rest in peace, she was my fiancée, and I didn't want to go through the whole pit all over again. So I remained in Georgia for a few days. I took off to Atlanta, Georgia, and I was there for the duration of my furlough.
Okay. Now you were inducted in and went into service in February of 41.
February 28, 1941.
Okay. Where did you go for your basic training? Down into Georgia? Is that where you...
Yeah, Fort Benning, Georgia.
Now, had you, how did you feel going into the southern area being a northerner? Did you ever have any problems? Or?
Well, actually, I think it's not so much how I felt. I think it's mostly the non-commissioned officers that we had. They were mostly southerners. And I felt that they were still fighting the Civil War.
Okay. When you, your training, did you have mostly World War I equipment, the old World War I helmets?
No. We were issued the Springfield rifle.
The old three?
We wore bridges for a short time, and also the old wraparound, like in World War I.
Yes.
But was just for a short time. Then we were issued new leggings, and they did away with the bridges, and they gave us regular. I was originally I was in Camp Upton in Yaphank, where Irving Berlin took his thing. And from there we were shipped to Fort Benning, Georgia, and I remained in Fort Benning until Pearl Harbor. After that, we moved down to Camp Gordon, Georgia, which is now Fort Gordon. And I remained with the infantry. And our unit originally was a anti-tank company, but it became a tank destroyer battalion. So
now, what kind of weapons did you have as an anti-tank unit?
The weapon was Springfield rifle and the Tommy gun. We were given different bayonet
okay,
drills.
the artillery piece that you had with you, was that pulled by a truck, or do you remember?
What was that again?
The artillery piece that the anti-tank unit used, was that pulled by a truck, or was it self-contained?
Actually, they were. When I was with the tank destroyer, what the tank destroyers actually did, there were like half tracks.
Oh, okay.
And the mission of the tank destroyer is to be up front and meet up with the tank to either destroy the enemy tank or destroy or.
So you had the artillery piece that was inside the half track.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah.
And how long did you stay with that unit?
I stayed with that unit until we went overseas. We arrived at Ireland, and the weather was extremely bad, and we pulled a lot of guard duty. We went on guard duty practically every other night.
Do you remember about what time you arrived in Ireland? When did you hit?
Yeah, that was about 2 years later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We arrived at Liverpool. From Liverpool, we took a train, and we stayed overnight in Scotland, and then, of course, the Irish Sea into Ireland. And we were in a small town by the name of Dungannon. A distance away, the nearest city, of course, was Belfast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you live in barracks or tents while you were there? Was it a base with barracks, buildings, or tents?
No, there were barracks. They were not tents, they were barracks.
Barracks, okay.
And as I said, pulling guard duty because we were a reconnaissance company. We were pulling guard duty very often. As a result of that, I had gotten a very bad cold. I ran a low temperature. I had to report to the infirmary. Once we got to the infirmary, my temperature went down to normal. They sent me back to the outfit. And this went on for a little while. Lo and behold, I got sick again, and I was running a very high temperature. So I was sent to a station house, to a field hospital, then to a station hospital. And I remained in the hospital for a few months with a severe case of bronchitis. And from there, I was placed in a replacement depot, and I was reclassified, and I got into special service. Special service, which I did not mention in here, was made up of actually the newspaper Stars and Stripes, the Yank magazine. They were also responsible for all the publication I was sent out to the education and orientation. And all the written material that was sent to our servicemen.
Okay. Now, so you were in on editing and working in these.
I beg your pardon?
You were working on all the U.S.O. publications.
Yeah. No, originally I was just with Transportation Special Service. I was with Bedford, and we were in London at the time.
Okay.
At a later date, we after D-Day, we were shipped from London. We were shipped to over the sea and into France, and I was stationed in France.
Okay, why don't you tell us about some of the people that you met and some of the things you remember about them?
Yeah. I met Mickey Rooney in my outfit, and he was telling me that he made a new movie by the name of National Velvet.
Oh.
First I asked him about Andy Hardy movies, because I told him how he'd been at headquarters a night before they were showing an Andy Hardy movie. And then he said, "Have you seen my most recent movie?" I said, "No." I said, "What is it?" He said, "National Velvet." When I asked him who's his leading lady, he told me a youngster by the name of Elizabeth Taylor. I said, "Who?" He said, "Elizabeth Taylor." My response was, "I never heard of her."
Yeah, that was her first movie, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it was her first movie, and she fell off the horse in that movie, and she'd been having trouble with her back ever since.
Oh,
she'd been in pain.
While they were doing the movie, she fell off her horse.
Yeah. I never met Elizabeth Taylor.
Now, what kind of person was Mickey Rooney?
Mickey Rooney was a happy-go-lucky guy. He was a short guy, of course, and not once did he make you feel that, after all, you know who I am? Mickey Rooney. Because in those days, Mickey Rooney was very big. Before he got into the army, he was practically #1, making pictures with Judy Garland and everything else, you know. But he never tried to hire at anybody. He used to play ping pong very often, and he was all GI. And Bobby Breen came about the same time. I don't know if you ever heard of Bobby Breen. But Bobby Breen was originally, it was a protege of Eddie Cantor. He was appearing with Eddie Cantor on the radio with Deanna Durbin. I guess that name doesn't.
I've never heard of him.
Deanna Durbin.
Yeah.
And they made a few movies, and he appeared on the Eddie Cantor radio show. There was no television in those days. Okay. I also had the good fortune of meeting Joe Lewis. By the way, I misspelled the word
Yeah.
Lewis.
Now, how did you meet him?
Pardon?
How did you end up meeting him? Did you drag him around too, or?
No. He was attached to the athletic branch of Special Service. And he was standing right in front of a building, and a lot of GIs stood there. And he was so much different than Muhammad Ali. He was a very quiet man, spoke very softly, and the other fellows were just standing around and listening to him, you know. He didn't brag about being a world champ. And we were standing outside in front of a building. A colonel passed by, and we all saw a full-fledged colonel. We all gave him a snappy salute. Joe Lewis gave him a snappy salute. The colonel returned the salute and walked over and said, "Mr. Sergeant Lewis, may I have your autograph? I'd like to send it to my grandfather." But this was really something. You have to realize too that in those days, during World War II, blacks and whites,
Yes, right.
they were segregated.
Yes.
The only time we ever saw blacks is when we were pulling guard duty when I was still in the infantry. Otherwise, when we were in a hospital, blacks and whites were allowed in the same hospital. Once they had to get out of the hospital, they were segregated all over again. I met Bob Hope. I had no conversation with Bob Hope, but I did have conversation with Bing Crosby.
Oh.
I walked over to Bing Crosby with a blank V-mail. I was going to say email. V-mail, a blank V-mail, and I said, "Mr. Crosby, may I have your autograph?" He says, "What am I signing here? You give me a blank piece of paper. How do I know I'm not sending your unit back to the States?" That was typical Bing Crosby. He did sign it, by the way.
Now, did you keep that?
Pardon?
Have you kept that autograph? Do you still have it?
No.
No.
I lost a lot of these. I have this autograph. I told my wife to send it to my kid sister. And as a matter of fact, when he went back to the States, he made that movie Going My Way, which he won the Academy Award.
Yeah. Now, you met Marlene Dietrich. Did you get to talk to her?
Who's that?
Marlene Dietrich.
Marlene Dietrich, I met her in London. I met her on the street. She was right outside. I walked over to her. I said, "Mrs. Dietrich, may I have your autograph?" And very willingly, she signed whatever. I have no copies of any of those autographs. I lost track of them. And she just signed it, and there was no, and that was in London. When we arrived at Paris, we saw a lot more of her. Originally, when she got to Paris, she stayed at the Ritz Hotel. And she was told by the military that if she wants to stay at the Ritz Hotel, it would have to be at her own expense. Because we had facilities for all the U.S.O. personnel right outside of Paris, very nice area. And she gave up her place at the Ritz Hotel. As a matter of fact, we had an inspection. We had to go through an inspection before Marlene Dietrich arrived to make sure that everything looked nice and clean there. And other than that, we saw her very, very often. In fact, we saw her performing there, and she did some of the skits that she did in with Desperate Rides Again.
What did you think of her as a person? How did she seem?
Very nice. Very nice. She looked like a star.
Now, did she have crowds of people around her when she?
No, not really. Well, you have to realize that once you're with this unit, you almost act nonchalantly. And we saw very often her driver, which was a GI, would very often drive her into the city at night and stay with a French actor by the name of Jean Gabin. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He was very famous at one time. Stayed there overnight, and then the driver would pick her up in the morning to take her back. She also told the driver, I hope you guys don't think that I'm a snob, but to tell you the truth, I'm not used to GI food. I think she had once said that she had gotten dysentery. Not coming from Marlene or Dietrich. A goddess.
Yes.
Major Glen Miller. You want to know how I met him?
Yes.
Major Glen Miller. I was the motor dispatcher. The driver came in. He said, I need a trip ticket. I said, who are you driving? He said, Major Glen Miller. And Major Glen Miller was attached to the musical branch of Special Service with the American Forces Network. So I said, you go out, I'll bring the trip ticket to the Major. Why? I wanted to meet him. And he was sitting in a Jeep, and I handed him the trip ticket. I gave him a salute. He took off to Orly Airfield, and he went to London. From London, he was supposed to come back to France, to Paris, but he never made it, and he was lost. Dorothy McGuire, you heard of Dorothy McGuire?
Yes.
Dorothy McGuire I met overseas, and the reason that she wanted to talk to me, because she made a movie, A Tree That Grows in Brooklyn.
Yes, I remember.
And I told her that I lived in Brooklyn for a number of years. Then she asked me, did you ever live in Williamsburg? I said, yes, I lived in Williamsburg for about a month. And then she asked me, what is Williamsburg like? She was never in Brooklyn. Okay. Lieutenant Joshua Logan. Did you ever hear of Joshua Logan?
No.
Well, if you look at this book here, there are about 10 pages devoted to Joshua Logan. Joshua Logan walked in the evening into my office. He said, who's in charge here? I said, I am, sir. Oh, he said, I need transportation to take me into Paris, to the Olympia Theater. Oh, I said, sir, we have no transportation available right now. He said, how about you being a good fellow? How about you taking me in? I said, sir, I don't drive. Did you say you were in charge of transportation? I said, yes. But you don't drive. He said, oh. But he was pleading with me I said, I have a friend that just got off the road. I'm going to ask him if he wants to take you into town. He's under no obligation to take you anywhere. And if he does take you to town, he's doing it as a favor to me. I got my friend to take him, so we got him in a Jeep. He was sitting next to the driver, and I was sitting. Oh, I went along. I went along for the trip. I had no idea who this Joshua Logan was. When before we got to our destination, the lieutenant turned around to my friend and to me and says, you know, just when I had an evening off, I have to go to the Olympia Theater to audition some kind of a show. So my friend turned around to me, who does he think he is? And we got to the theater, and he said, you fellas want to go and see the show? I said, sir, we already saw the show. The reason he wanted us to come in the show is that he would have transportation to go back. Actually, we'd never met him before. He was not an officer in our particular locality. When I got back the following day, I told my lieutenant, I said, you know what happened last night? A lieutenant, I never met him before. And we took him into the Olympia Theater. So he said, what's his name? He said, Joshua Logan. He said, Joshua Logan is a very famous Broadway producer and director. He also, Joshua Logan directed Annie Get Your Gun. Joshua Logan directed Annie Get Your Gun, which of course Irving Berlin wrote the music.
Yes,
to. Yeah. How I got to meet Irving Berlin is when I was still in Ireland and I was in a hospital. Irving Berlin at that time was producing the show This Is the Army, which was later made into a movie. And some of the men, GIs that were connected with the show, were also laid up in a hospital in Belfast. So he came there to visit these men. He also put on that little show from World War I. Oh, I hate to get up in the morning. And he looked like a doughboy. He's a little bit of a guy, you know. Then afterwards, he walked around the wards, because there were a lot of patients there that the best he could do is shake hands with certain people. And as he was walking through, this is the month of December, mind you, and over the loudspeaker you can hear, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. Actually, it was the voice of Bing Crosby singing that song. One of the colonels turned around to Irving Berlin and said, Mr. Berlin, they're playing your song. He simply smiled, he acknowledged, and he just went on. Never gave you, do you realize who I am? Nothing like that. So a little bit of a guy.
That must have been amazing to meet all these people.
Oh yeah, I did mention that. I'm bringing the right way now. Two colonels alongside.
Now you said you also met Edward G. Robinson and...
Oh yeah, Edward G. Robinson I met in London. This friend of mine walked over to me with a £5 note. Said, Pincus, do me a favor. Edward G. Robinson is just coming through the corridor. Ask him for his autograph. I said, look, you want his autograph? It's you five. Go over. He said, no, he said, you have more chutzpah than I have. So I did. I caught Edward G. Robinson in the corridor. He had a gas mask. He had a duffel bag. And a gas mask, a duffel bag, and a helmet. He was carrying the duffel bag, and here I come over to him for his autograph. So he said to me, how about young fella, you know, if I stop for a minute, I'm going to be mobbed. I said, Mr. Robinson, please, there's a room here. It was toward the end of the day. There's a room here. Nobody's in there. Please, I got to have your autograph. So we went in there. By the time he gave me his autograph, others got wind of the fact that he was there, and he was mobbed there. But he took it very good-naturedly. And I said, Mr. Robinson, is it true that you were once a rabbinical student? He says, go on. He said, that was newspaper stuff. He said, I had hard enough time to get through with my bar mitzvah. Then he started to talk with a Cockney accent because there were a few charwomen there. And one of the charwomen said to the other, blimey, he's limey. But he took everything good-naturedly. I had no problem with him.
How about Broderick Crawford? I see you met him too.
Who?
Broderick Crawford.
Broderick Crawford, I met him. The first time I met him when he was hosting a concert given by Glen Miller. He was hosting a concert, and at that time he was known, but he never actually played leads. But at a later date, when he was back in the States, he won the Academy Award. And he was a GI. Every performer, every musician that was with Glen Miller, they were all GIs, and they all enlisted at the same time as Glen Miller enlisted.
Who do you think of all the people you met was the one that made the greatest impression on you?
Pardon?
Of all the people you met, who left the greatest impression on you?
I think the greatest impression was meeting Bob Hope. I never spoke to Bob Hope, never had an opportunity. I did have a photograph, I don't know what happened to it. And I also met Jerry Cologne.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I have pictures of Jerry Cologne. Yeah. You still want me to?
Sure.
You want to start looking at some of those pictures?
Well, do you have anything else you want to tell us?
Yeah. Well, I also, I'll tell you something. One of my officers came over to me and said, Sergeant Lieberman, I have to have a sedan. Got to pick up someone. I said, when do you want it? He said, at once. I said, sir, you have to give us 24-hour notice to get a sedan, because we had just a few of them. And sedan were mostly for celebrities and also for officers, majors and up. And we just had a few. So I said, I'm sorry, I don't think I can help you. So he asked me, did you ever hear of Celeste Holmes? I said, no, I didn't. He said, neither did I. When he got the notices and Celeste Holmes was arriving, he had no idea, because she was already appearing, not in pictures, but she was appearing on Broadway in Bloomer Girl and Oklahoma. And since then, she made a name for herself.
Right. Did you get to meet her at all, or?
Yeah, I got it, but not too much kind. Just saying hello and so forth. Yeah. Lily Pons and Andre Castellanich, we just made eye contact, but she was very charming, and she with beautiful smile, a little bit of a woman, and she was married to Andre Castellanich, who was a very famous orchestra leader.
Yes, I remember his name.
I also met Grace Moore.
I don't know who she is.
Grace Moore was an opera singer, and she also made a few movies. And she turned out to be a very good actress and a very good comedian. And she made two movies. She was known in the opera, but she made two movies. One Night of Love and Tell Me That You Love Me Tonight. I still remember the pictures. And transportation was arranged for her to go out on, I think she was going back to the States. She never made it. She was lost in, that was Grace Moore. And she was lost before, Leslie Howard was the first one that we knew about. You ever hear Leslie Howard?
Yes.
Leslie Howard was the first one. I never met Leslie Howard. Yeah.
Was she lost before or after Glen Miller's band?
I think it was before.
Before?
I think before. I don't know whether she was going back to the States. So. Oh yeah, I think one of the questions that you wanted to know, what experience left the greatest impression on you? I wrote, meeting so many celebrities who were exposed to battlefields and danger zones, especially during the Battle of the Bulge in Belgium. They had the setback there, and also Hitler was boasting that the final victory in Europe is going to be, he boasted that he was going to be back in Paris by Christmas time. When they got off the road, most of the shows that were on the road during the Battle of the Bulge had to come back to headquarters. And they came in around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and provisions had to be made for them where to stay, because a lot of the shows, they went out on the road, but some shows came back, other shows went in. But during the battle, all the shows that were in northern France came back to headquarters, and we were in the middle of the night. We had to arrange transportation for them to take them back, and also a place to stay. So the Battle of the Bulge is really what stood out of the term. One of the questions that you wanted to know, did I perform any unusual service or duties?
Well, I think all of your duties.
And I said not as much as our combat men in action. I was very fortunate by not being exposed to danger during the war.
But you did have a lot of very interesting.
And I would say this there: if I remained with the tank destroyer unit that went overseas, I may have not been here to tell you the story, because a lot of the men were gone.
Do you have photographs you want to show us then?
Oh, of course.
If you take them, you know, you could hold like.
These are for you.
Oh,
yeah.
Boy, thank you.
Yeah.
If you hold them up like this and explain what it is, Wayne can focus on the...
This is part of the Soldier Shows company. The outsetting performers were Mickey Rooney, Breen, Red Buttons, and Billy Hallop. Billy Hallop originally played in Dead End in the movie. And
now, are you in that picture at all?
not in this picture, no.
Now, did you ever, when did you...
I have a picture of myself with, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You probably never heard of him. Roscoe Yates was a character actor, never played the lead. He was a character actor, he was a comedian, but he was known as a stutterer. Somebody once asked him, "Do you always stutter?" He said, "No, only when I talk." All right, this is good.
Now, when did you learn to drive?
I didn't.
Never?
Never did.
You've never driven?
No. I was lucky. When I got the job as a dispatcher, the one that was the dispatcher was very anxious to get out of the office. He wanted to be out on the road. So I got the break and I was able to take his job. This is Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontaine.
Oh, yes.
Alfred Lunt at that time they were known mostly on Broadway, not so much in the movies. And I had met him for the first time. I walked over to Alfred Lunt and I said, "Mr. Lunt, may I take your autograph? May I take your photograph?" Oh, he said, "Sorry." He said, "I don't photograph without my wife." His wife was just short distance away talking to one of the U.S.O. personnel. He walked over to his wife. He said, "Honey, this soldier wants to take our picture." And I took the picture.
Wow.
So this is, you took that, right?
Yes.
Okay. I have no pictures to Bob Hope, but this is Jerry Cologne.
Yes.
Yeah.
I recognize him by the mustache.
Yeah. It's genuine.
Okay.
This is a picture of Marlene and Dietrich with an army officer. I don't know who the officer was. Got that?
Hold it there just for a second.
I would say that Bob Hope and Marlene and Dietrich spent as much time overseas. But that, don't
I've
forget,
seen.
Bob Hope later on, he was in Vietnam. He was, yeah. Okay.
I think we have that photograph.
Yes. Yes.
This is you,
You can hold it back a little bit. Who is that?
That's me.
You, okay.
You said you wanted to pick this
Yes.
too.
Yeah,
Okay.
Hold it still. Okay, got it.
Now,
When was that taken? Do you remember? When and where?
no, I don't think I was. I think I was still in the infantry, but I don't remember exactly when it was
Yeah.
taken. Our captain knocked on my door when I was in my room, and he walks in with this gentleman, Yasha Heifetz,
Oh, wow.
and he said to me, Sergeant Lieberman, I want you to meet Yasha Heifetz. And I was bewildered. I couldn't believe it, because Yasha Heifetz was the most outstanding violinist at that time. Misha Elman, Yehuda Menuhin, and Yasha Heifetz, they were the big ones. The reason that I was introduced to him, because he wanted a carton of cigarettes, and the officer knew that I was saving cigarettes for a lot of the men that were out on the road. I had a foot locker. I had my cigarettes, I had their cigarettes as well. So the captain asked me, can you spare a carton of cigarettes? I said yes. And I handed a Chesterfield. Turned to me and said, don't you have Camels? I said, no. I said, I'm not selling it. He didn't offer to pay for it, and I never got it. That's Yasha Heifetz.
There's one of your cigarettes in his hand, too.
Okay.
Okay. This picture,
You can hold it back a little bit. He can
I'm
focus
sorry.
up. That's
This
okay.
picture is Mickey Rooney and Bobby Breen. They were in the soldier show company. And this, my son blew it up from a small photo. This is my office in Paris. And all the U.S.O, what you see on the bulletin board are all the shows that were out on the road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All the shows that are out on the road.
So you had to keep tabs of all these people that were...
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. We had to keep, we had to know, aside from how we'd written down, and we had to have it, if somebody asked me exactly where is that show out, I just looked it up and we knew. For a while I knew every show, but then after D-Day, more and more shows were coming overseas, and there were a lot of actors that were never with U.S.O. previously. They wanted to become part of it. This is a picture of myself, still when I was in the infantry.
Okay.
This is a small photo again of Lunt and Fontaine. But you have one.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is that civilian personnel that she was talking to at the time.
Okay.
You can keep them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's all for you.
Wow, thank you.
This is a small picture of Yasha Heifetz. But those, and a friend sitting in a Jeep.
Okay.
Well, that one you showed us already.
Pardon?
You showed us that
Yeah,
one. We didn't...
This is a small picture of Mickey Rooney. I think it was taken in Belgium. And it can hardly make out. But you see him in a combat unit.
Okay.
This is a picture of Lily Pons and Andre Castellanos.
Okay.
I was very fortunate when I was still in Georgia. I saw Lily Pons. She was, and I was still with the dinosaur unit. She was performing in a theater, and I had the good fortune of hearing her sing. This is a picture of Martha Tilden. I don't know if you...
Oh, I remember hearing
Yeah.
her, yes. She was a singer, wasn't she?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, this is a picture of Marlene and Dietrich and one of our drivers. And this is very much like that other picture I showed you.
Oh, okay.
And this is it. You want a photo of my...
Yes, if you have
discharge
copies
papers?
of those, we'll put those in your folder, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put them in your folder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You can have this.
oh, thank you. Now, how do you think your time in the service was affected by...
Pardon?
How do you think your time in the service affected your life?
How did it affect my life?
Yes.
Well, I would say that it... During the early part, when I was in the infantry, I didn't consider myself a good soldier. For the simple reason I never did manual work. Even in civilian life, I worked in a bindery, and there was no real dexterity. I never did actual exercise around on that. So I wasn't the greatest soldier. I didn't even make a PFC. And it was only when I got into special service, within a short month, I became a PFC, not a couple of months corporal, and then I was sergeant.
Did you ever use a GI Bill when you left the service?
The only thing I utilized is not when I bought my first house. I got a 4% GI mortgage, and which was a big help to us. And also we were entitled to a certain amount of pay. We got a bonus to the
5220
stipend.
Club? Did you ever... The 5220 Club?
About no more than about 1 or 2 months. I didn't stay. I went to work for my uncle at that time. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other questions? Well,
But I did get a pension from the state of New York. We never got a federal pension. I don't think we ever will either.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your interview.
You're very
It was
welcome.
very interesting.
Yeah.